And a very good morning to you and welcome to K24 this morning. As always, we'll start off with our newspaper review. Look at the big stories making headlines across your dailies this morning, but also dig a bit deeper and ask ourselves as a country, where do we stand as far as the state of the Big Four agenda is concerned? As of yesterday, the president at Bomas of Kenya spoke about the fact that right now, as far as his term is left, he's focused on just making sure he finishes his development agenda and unites the country. So as that process takes place, as far as unity of the country is concerned, let's take stock of where the Big Four agenda stands and what really is feasible to be completed by the time we get to the end of his term. That's a discussion we'll be having right here in studio. We love it when you're part of the conversation. You can get me at I am Jeff Motic and also get me at K24 TV. The WhatsApp number will be scrolling at the bottom of your screen, so we want you to be part of that conversation. But as you get up and get ready for your day, it's raining here in Nairobi, cats and dogs, so you don't really need to leave your office to go and grab yourself a copy of your People Daily. If you're in the house, don't feel like leaving the house yet, you don't need to go and look for your vendor in the rain. You can get it straight to your phone, and the number that you dial is star 550 star 4 hash. Once again, the number is star 550 star 4 hash. Dial that number and get yourself a copy of your People Daily straight to your phone. It's brought to you by the People Daily and Safaricom as well. So once again, the number that you dial is star 550 star 4 hash. Dial it and get yourself a copy of your PD straight to your phone. It's brought to you by the PD and Safaricom. So get it and get fully informed. Speaking of which, let's see what headlines you're waking up to this morning as we go through your dailies. We'll start off with your People Daily. This is a headline you'll be getting as you download your e-paper. We have it right here on screen. Let's scroll it up and see. Doctor's final word to medics before dying. 28-year-old Mogusu types an impassioned appeal to health workers to protect themselves against COVID-19. Now, this is a story that, as of yesterday, had gone viral across all social media platforms. And just what he typed out to all of the doctors and the message that he gave them, really heart-wrenching at this particular point in time. Really, even as they get into the 14 days of dialogue between the doctors and the government to try and come up with how they can move forward in a working formula for really what we are terming as the basics, from PPEs to COVID allowances as well, and insurance for the work that they're doing at the front line. But this story makes front and center in your copy of your People Daily. You can get it straight to your phone as well and get this on your e-paper. Let's look at the front page of the Standard now. On the front page of the Standard, different story there. Senator's 21-hour date that ended in ICU. Last Thursday afternoon, Senator Boniface Kabaka drove to an upmarket Nairobi apartment where he was joined by a woman. 21 hours later, he was rushed to hospital unconscious. Police are now investigating an attempted murder, as what transpired at 3D remains a mystery. This is a story, of course, that had also gotten viral sensation on Friday last weekend, getting into the weekend as well. And the police, of course, trying to get to the bottom of really what's going on right there. Also in your copy of your Standard right there, Uhuru on his love for the military. President Uhuru confesses his love for the military in a candid conversation with the youth, during which he ruled out big changes in government, including cabinet. That story is in your copy of your Standard therein. And of course, he spoke about the fact that he loves the military's ethos and efficiency when it comes to project delivery and completion. And you can find that story in your copy of your Standard as well. We move it along to the Daily Nation now. On the front page of the Daily Nation, Uhuru Ruto allies hold secret talks. That's what they're leading with. The push for consensus has now boiled down to 3 issues following weekend meetings, with Deputy President's camp saying it is ready to mount a fresh drive for signatures in support of referendum if its proposals are accommodated. But ODM leader Raila Odinga would have none of it. So once again, a process that's essentially supposed to be uniting the entire country, boiling down to 3 individuals right at the top. And this is a story you can get on page 4 of your Daily Nation, the details of that therein. We'll move it along now to the Star's front page. On the Star's front page, Uhuru's 929 billion shilling COVID-19 recovery plan. 1.1 billion shillings will go to schools for masks, soap and sanitizers on that. State plans to spend the money on health, education and security. This is a key focus of what is almost at 1 trillion Kenya shillings as far as that's concerned. You can find the details of that particular story right there. And even as we talk about the focus of what Uhuru's budget is going to be as far as this COVID-19 recovery plan is, right next to it, save yourselves. A quote from Dr. Stephen Mogusu right there. A doctor at 28 years old, dying, and of course, right before passing on, sending a passionate plea to his peers concerning how they're dealing with this COVID-19 and the state of their workplace as of now. That story is on page 2 of of your star. You can get all the details right there. And finally, looking at matters business in your copy of your Business Daily. The rich bank 1.4 billion shillings daily during lockdown. Lenders grow deposits by 259 billion shillings in 6 months to September during COVID curbs. So the disparity of what's going on at the very top, of course, right at the bottom, of course, a different scenario playing out right there. But you can get the details of this particular story in your copy of your Business Daily therein. Lots to discuss as far as this is concerned. You can get it on page 4 of your Business Daily, the details of that therein. But right now, of course, it's all about us getting into our newspaper review and looking at the big stories therein. And even at this point in time, let's at this stage, as we talk about what's been happening in the health sector, a looming strike that was averted yesterday, giving 14 days for the doctors and the government to try and get to some middle ground as far as the demands are concerned. Now, despite doctors postponing their strike on Sunday in order to give the national government a chance to negotiate, nurses and clinical officers yesterday initiated their nationwide strike. Thousands of nurses have suspended the provision of health services at health facilities, pointing an accusing finger to the government for what they're terming as negligence and contempt for their hard work. Ben Kerera reports on the situation in various counties hours after the strike began.
Hii dawa kwa mkono iliandikiwa Friday. Sikupata sababu. There was only one person at the pharmacy.
It could be the beginning of hardships that Jeremiah Sunguti, a high blood pressure patient, may have to go through, hours after a strike by clinical officers and nurses began. The situation has led to services being paralyzed at, among others, the Kakamega County General Teaching and Referral Hospital.
Nimetembea saa hii, we are at 95% closure. Only interns are the ones working. Wale madaktari waliohitimu wameenda nje, wako katika kazi zao huko nje.
In Bungoma County, one family has lost their loved one after arriving at the hospital on Tuesday and lacking the presence of professional assistance. Patients admitted in the wards were similarly disappointed with the situation, leaving them to seek alternative treatment.
Sijahudumiwa tangu asubuhi na hata tumepewa tu chai tu. Na nilikuwa na miscarriage, hata sina nguvu.
Serikali angalie maslahi ya madaktari ndio wagonjwa kama mimi tusikaweze kuumia kama vile mimi ninaumia, lakini inaonekana nitarudi nyumbani na nimeharibu fare.
If there is any problem to do with the nurses, we just request that their welfare is met.
Despite issuing repeated strike notices, clinical officers' leadership has reiterated that their plights have been in vain, forcing them to take drastic action despite the sharp increase in COVID-19 infections in the country.
I want to make a clarion call to the president, because ultimately, whether health is devolved or not, it rests at his door. That Kenyans are suffering. They have not started suffering with this strike.
Following what they claim is the national government's neglect of their safety, more than 23,000 nurses will now not report to work nor provide care services to patients. The fraternity today mourns the deaths of nurse Nelly Masolo and Saumu Hassan Musyoka, bringing to 26 the total fatalities among nurses during the COVID-19 period.
Hizi vifaa ambazo tumekuwa tukiitisha kwamba tupewa hazijaweza hata kutoka pale KEMSA, unajua vizuri sana. Na tetezi zilizopo ni kwamba ni sababu ya wizi, na wizi hakuna mwenye ambaye ameshikwa, na zaidi ya miezi 6 sasa hizo vifaa zimezuiliwa pale. Zitaondoka, zikitolewa lini, zitakuja kutusaidia lini?
Various leaders including ODM party leader Raila Odinga and Tharaka Nithi County Governor Muthomi Njuki have called on health workers to return to work and dialogue to avoid a crisis in the health sector as the nation struggles with the COVID-19 pandemic.
All that I want to do is to appeal to our doctors to be more understanding. We are in a crisis at the moment. People are dying. The doctors, it's not only doctors who are dying, ordinary Kenyans are also dying of this COVID.
Wakiitisha pesa sahihi na waitishe vitu vingine mingi, ni kumaanisha the country cannot be able to afford. Na hiyo ni kumaanisha kwamba watu wakiendelea kugonjeka, if we don't have health workers, we are going to lose more people than we are losing at the moment, which is not the desired result we are looking for.
Kinyumbani zimekuwa chache and by the health workers. But this is a new normal. We know there might be problems, and there are not only problems in health sector, all sectors, kwa sababu uchumi wetu umesorota.
Ben Kirera, K24.
Setting the stage for our discussion right here, of course, with universal health coverage being part of the Big Four agenda and one of the key pillars that the president wants to deliver as far as his term is concerned. It's a discussion we'll be having right here in studio. We also have a question of the day for you. Let's have that up really quickly before I get to my panel. Which pillar of the Big Four agenda has benefited your county? Which pillar of the Big Four agenda has benefited your county? The WhatsApp number is at the bottom of the screen. You can also get me at I am Jeff Mote on Twitter or at K24 TV. Which pillar of the Big Four agenda has benefited your county? Let's have that conversation right here in studio. Speaking of in studio, joined by public policy analyst Arnold Maliba. Good morning.
Morning, Jeff.
Karibu sana, welcome to the show.
Karibu, you've been away for a while.
Yes.
So we should actually be bringing
you should be the one welcoming me
you
back.
Welcome back.
Well, I feel welcomed. Thank you. Also joined by the Executive Director, East Africa Center for Law and Justice, Joy Mdivo. Good morning.
Good morning, Jeff.
Karibu.
Asante sana.
Welcome to the show. I want us to start from that particular point in time where we're talking about the Big Four agenda. You look at the front page of most of your dailies right now, we have Dr. Stephen Mugusu, the late, passing on at the age of 28, young family in tow, 5 months arrears in salary, didn't have any insurance. They were actually fundraising while he was in hospital, having contracted this at work. And then you hear the statement from, COG Chair Wycliffe Oparanya. We hear the statements from former PM Raila Odinga asking medics to be more understanding. And they're really asking for the bare minimums in order to work. There seems to be a huge disconnect with what the leadership are seeing and what's happening on the ground, Joy.
If you've studied a little bit of history, you must have heard about somebody called Marie Antoinette, who was confronted over the hunger of the people and being told that the people have no bread to eat. And she famously remarked that, what, no bread to eat? Well, then why don't they eat cake? Sometimes when you listen to our leaders, you get the feeling that there's a Marie Antoinette moment in their lives. What they're saying is true. The country can actually follow several interests at the same time. But there is something about separating the important from the urgent. Right now, the health of the country is at stake, and the people who can help us fight in this area are the healthcare workers. You can afford to lose a few lawyers in this time. It's not that lawyers' life are any cheaper. It's just that in the pandemic, lawyers are as useful to you as we are not very useful in this fight. But a doctor is so critical because the potential for him to save hundreds of lives is so much greater than those of us who look at laws. And I'm not, Arnold here look at me like you want us to die. No, I'm not saying that lawyers' lives are not worth it. But in a particular situation, there are people who are your last line of defense. And lawyers and doctors in this situation are our last line of defense. For you to get one doctor to be standing and ready to serve, he's gone through school for 6 years, a residency of maybe another 2 years. If he has even had a specialization, it's a further 2-3 years of training. So by the time you're seeing a doctor able to handle working with patients, you're looking at an investment as a country in this person's life of at least 9 years in training alone. If you went to a public university, the public has actually invested in training this person to be able to offer services to us. Therefore, when one doctor dies, it's not another life lost. It's all the skills, all the potential of what he could have done to save many more Kenyans that is also lost. So Dr. Mugusu could have dealt with all these other Kenyans. And now we have one less fighter in this particular battle. When I listen to our leaders sometimes, as much as I agree with them that yes, we can follow several priorities at once, when you're confronted with something that is an existential threat, it's here now, and it is looking like it can overwhelm everybody, then our leaders would separate the important from the urgent. And right now, helping our healthcare workers be the best that they can be in dealing with this is urgent. Because if Dr. Mugusu's last text was anything to go by, telling his colleagues, you know what, forget the job, save yourselves. If the doctors decide that they're no longer going to work, forget about even a strike notice. They all decide now that they're resigning and they're staying in the house. What are we going to do?
Key concern right there. Arnold, when you look at this, some people are wondering, how did you get to such a point when really at the beginning, healthcare was a key focus of this government? It's one of the things that should have found us prepared at the very least.
Well, I don't think it's actually happening now. It's something that was long in the pipeline happening, starting with devolution. It was wrong, in my opinion, to devolve agriculture and health. I still hold it strongly that if agriculture is actually the backbone of our economy, you need to see the jokes that happen in counties in the name of agricultural programs and stuff. Of course, a few counties are getting it right. It's terrible. Same thing happened to health. Even in BBI, we still dismissed them. They wanted a health commission to coordinate staff and everything else. If you look at the money that remains at the ministry, we're talking about the national, which essentially should be taking care of a few facilities, I think they're about 5. And then, of course, the coordinating element that comes with policy. But then you realize that in counties, doctors are treated like just any other worker. Of course, counties should not be discriminating, but then the way counties have actually, you remember when we started with devolution, sometimes doctors will not get jobs because they don't come from those particular areas. A very serious element like that, people will still try to play politics with that. So there's need to rethink health. But I want to say this. I've looked at Dr. Mugusu's text, I've seen how the anger is around there, but this is where I am. I am not surprised. For the simple reason that this country has abandoned its sons and daughters in war in the past. I'm talking about we take young men and women to the battlefield and we have abandoned them there. We have had children. Sometimes when we can really sit around here and say that if you say some other things, you glorify terrorism. But if you look at the human cost that we paid in Garissa University, it was too high for any other person to actually have been in government. We lost over 147 young people, lives of parents, or rather young people whose parents had actually denied themselves, so as to take their children into school and change the fortunes of their lives and their lineages. But here we have got a government that would put our elite team on road, traveling 6 hours. But we have got helicopters, for example, that are available, and no one took responsibility for that. We have taken our people to war, and we have to say this repeatedly. So if we have taken our people to war and abandoned them there to suffer, I am not surprised that we have actually taken our medics to the battlefront and abandoned them there. As that happens, we have got 6 billion PPEs at KEMSA, not resolved. Totally not resolved. We are still going round and round and round, and people are going into financial ruin because paying the cost, NHIF has said they can't pay costs, and we are still going up and about that. So it's just common. But then before we get to that particular level, probably we need to actually just summarize the problem with that. Number one, even as we look at a side of a government that sometimes appears like they don't care, there's one thing. Of course, there's the element of underfunding. 85% of all the money that counties invest in healthcare go to salaries and allowances and such. So there's the element of underfunding. The Transition Authority really messed up big time before they left. They didn't cost functions properly, so we still have got that problem. And of course, there is the element, I know sometimes she has alluded to the Antoinette phenomena where people were outside in France, in Paris, demonstrating, and Marie Antoinette is being told people are actually, and she says, why are they making noise? And she says, they are saying there's no bread. She says, why can't they eat cake? There's the element that we also do not want to face. Medics also have also not been understanding. It's not new. It's not really new. This push and pull is not necessarily new. So I know the context might be wrong from where the former PM has actually spoken. But everyone, including guys who are managing payrolls, will tell you that it's difficult to deal with these guys. And it's something that stems from, of course, the Bill of Rights that we have, and then the Employment Act 207. It's a landmine that is very, very difficult to navigate.
Okay, I want to get Justice in on this one as well. We are also joined by governance expert, Justice Minor. He's Skype from Bomet. Just as we are finding ourselves in this area where it's a lot of blame games going on and finger pointing. The national government saying this is a devolved function. Governors talking about lack of funds from the national government as well. NHIF also said that they can't cover these people because they just don't have the money. There's no money that has come from the executive, from Treasury on this one. Yet as the finger pointing happens, lives are being lost every single day. And I think this case of Dr. Stephen Mugusu might be the face moving forward of the doctor's plight.
Yeah, I think the problem is the way the government has self-packaged the message. And of course, you could hear that what Raila was trying to tell the medics and the nation yesterday was poorly received, because the person who has himself been singing that the Ndomboloya BBI, nobody will stop Ndomboloya BBI, is the very same person who is asking the medics to exercise patience, while the politicians don't seem to have time and energy to exercise patience. They want to come up with an administrative unit that people are calling a double-decker. They are asking the rest of us Kenyans to exercise patience, while they themselves are speeding on the highway in the name of BBI. They have told us time without number that nobody can stop reggae, that the Ndomboloya BBI must move on. And therefore, the message from Raila will be ordinarily poorly received. You know, in law, there is the word that says if you come to equity, you must come with clean hands. Raila has not gone to the medics with clean hands, because he's the same man who has been leading a reggae squad. And therefore, the government, if it must be believed, it must prioritize its agenda. It is very interesting that in the eyes of government, supplying PPEs ranks lower than collection of BBI signatures. It is very surprising that provision of health coverage is a basic need. In the eyes of some of these, reggae squad, BBI ranks higher. It's very interesting that if health is basic need in their eyes, and then BBI is very, very basic need, because there is no other way you can describe the fact that that they are bulldozing BBI amidst a pandemic that is ravaging. It is worse. It is even more painful. Why the medics are feeling the pinch and the pain is that the doctor that died had not received his salary for more than 5 months. You can imagine. He didn't have a health cover. And therefore, if these are the frontline soldiers, these are the people that we have sent ahead of us to fight the pandemic, and the government do not seem to take care of them, not seem to even pay their salaries on time, they don't have sufficient cover, then I think why the nation is so much worried and there's backlash on what Raila was saying is basically because if we cannot take care of the frontline workers, then who else will be taken care of?
Okay. Joy, there's that whole talk of, and this has come from the political class, like what you said, we have many priorities, and of course, because of that, we can walk and chew gum at the same time, as has been said. But it seems like there's more gum chewing, less walking on this one, because the real basic needs, when you talk about universal healthcare, when you talk about businesses and where we are in the state of the economy right now, really isn't getting, from a perception point of view, the focus that it should get. Do you think it's a miscommunication issue, that actually there's more being done that we're not seeing, or really have they dropped the ball when it comes to matters, health as we're seeing, and also public debt, because we're at a point where even citizens are worried with where this is going?
When you look at how universal healthcare is supposed to have been structured under the Big Four agenda, it was not as was interpreted that it is NHIF for everybody. I think sometimes we listen to too much American news when you talk about insurance for everyone. Mm-hmm. Universal healthcare, as was designed in the Big Four agenda, was to have standardized medical facilities that were available to every citizen within a reasonable distance. So, for example, if we decide that the ward is the unit of development, every ward should have a health center that should have certain primary capabilities, maybe a day surgery unit for circumcision and other small procedures, a maternity unit that can take maybe about 5 mothers. You have got a standard doctor, clinical officer, several nurses, such that every ward has a particular installation that can afford somebody help, such that if you're in need, there is somewhere you can go for your primary health care. And from there, if there is a need for further treatment, you can be referred to a level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5, level 6 hospital. That's how it was designed to be. Somewhere along the way, I think a distortion came in that this was supposed to be just NHIF for everybody. And so you saw counties falling over themselves, trying to sponsor people, to register people into NHIF. But there are a few counties that got it right. Somebody like Makueni in Kakamega, where they actually started building installations and equipping the installations to make healthcare accessible, because universal healthcare means you have a certain standard of care all along. So for example, now enter COVID, what we saw with Honorable Murunga, if you end up, you're not at a place where there's a big hospital, but you're in crisis, you should be able to be managed, stabilized, and transferred if universal health care had been applied accordingly. Or what we saw with Marehemu Senior Nzamba, where you are at a situation where even if you have a crisis, forget about trying to get a chopper or whatnot, you can get the primary health care to stabilize you before you need to be moved to a more equipped facility. That being said, now coming to where we are about walking and chewing gum at the same time, because COVID came in, and it came in with a disorganization of our priorities. There are some of those things that may have been lined up to be done that were not done because funds were redirected. But this is also the season, as Arnold was pointing out, we are still talking about PPEs not being accessible, but here we are investigating a warehouse full of PPEs. Okay, even if, you know, there is the facts and the figures that needs to be sorted out, what stops government from distributing those PPEs to the people who need it, even as we figure out who's going to pay for it? Because now, separating the important from the urgent, right, it is more urgent to make this available to people. So I agree with you. Sometimes it looks like there's more chewing gum than walking that is happening, while walking would be more important than chewing gum, you would imagine. We have to come to a place where our politicians understand that, look around the world, we have come to a place where Donald Trump has lost his presidency, in large part in how he mishandled the COVID pandemic. People understand politics and they enjoy politics. It's a national pastime. It's a thing we do when we've got nothing else to do. It's a thing we do when we've got a lot many other things to do. Mm-hmm. We do politics all the time. But that said, people have a limit. Each one of us sitting here, like Arnold and I will tell you, in this week alone, forget about last week, this week that we have started, already 2 advocates have passed on. I'm seeing on my WhatsApp that Flani is deceased, Flani is deceased. My WhatsApp is full of, may he RIP, may he RIP. We are not the only ones. People are losing people every single day. Okay. This thing is hitting closer and closer to home. You'll get to a place where you'll be telling people, okay, now that we've reached here, now come and vote for me. And people will remind you, when we were busy burying our dead, where were you?
Let's take a pause at that particular point in time as we focus on that. Of course, this also making the basis for our question even as we move forward, because as the finger pointing goes on, it boils down to the counties. What pillar of the Big Four agenda has benefited your county? Let us know your county and what that has happened, what type of benefit you've gotten from there. The WhatsApp number is at the bottom of the screen. We take a short break. When we're back after the break, we look at the rest of the pillars of the Big Four agenda and also the cloud of debt that's hanging over the country at this particular point in time. Where do we go from here? That after the break.